We are recording. Episode 10 of Everybuddies podcast. And we are broadcasting our pirate code and hacking into the Matrix. Everybuddies podcast coming straight at you from Burnsville, Minnesota. Cam Wadam and Jake the Bean. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts today?
Thoughts?
Yeah.
Dude, I just woke up.
There have been some special elections.
Okay.
There was one here in Minnesota all three of them were state Senate seats.
Okay.
There was one here in Minnesota. It was previously held by the lady who's now the mayor of St. Paul.
Okay.
And she had won it with 71% of the vote.
Okay.
And the person who just won that seat again, the Democrat who won that seat again, won it with 95% of the vote.
Ah.
So a 24-point shift. They call that an Assad margin because Bashar al-Assad, right before he lost power, held an election where he got 91% of the vote. There was another one in a state Senate district in Iowa that Trump had actually won with a little over 70% of the vote. And the Democrat won it just a few days ago with 52% of the vote. So that was another one where you had like a 20, 30-point shift. There was a state Senate seat election in Texas that was just held yesterday. The Democratic candidate also won there. Now that seat or that district had been won by Trump. Trump had gotten 57% of the vote in 2024.
Okay.
And this Democrat now got 57% of the vote.
Okay.
So you went from Democrats losing by a 17-point margin to Democrats winning by a 15-point margin. So what do you think is driving all that?
It's obvious what's driving all that.
Say your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily obvious.
Yeah, okay. So the biggest obvious things is white American citizens getting executed in the street. We have two separate instances, and this administration defended both of the executions.
And a lot of what's going on here in Minnesota, people outside of Minnesota are seeing it. And 2/3 of Americans are saying it's gone too far. And that's actually part of the people who are saying it hasn't gone too far are people who haven't seen any of it. They haven't seen it. They're just not aware of it. A lot of people they don't pay attention to the news. Okay. There are a lot of people where just dealing with their day-to-day life is all they can handle. So they stay in their bubble because it's all they can do. But yeah, when people are surveyed, it's like 65, 70% of people who are aware of what's going on are just saying either the policy is completely wrong or everything's just going way too far.
With that said, protect your neighbors.
Protect your neighbors.
While you still got them.
Right.
Protect your neighbors while you still got them.
And keep in mind that the most important thing we can do if we want to improve the culture, if we want to improve the culture in our country, in the United States, or really in any country, one of the best things you can do is connect with your neighbors, connect with the people around you, connect to your community. Because if people feel isolated from each other, if nobody's talking to each other, then what kind of community do you have anyway? And how much difference does it make who's in charge if you're not going to have any community anyway?
Sure.
Obviously, if you're someone who's in the crosshairs, if you're someone who's getting hit by bad policy or getting hit by an abusive government, then yes, it matters to you. As far as other people's self-interest, what matters is that they have community and connection and friends. So if you want to improve the culture, the thing to do is connect with others.
All right.
What do you think?
In line with protecting our neighbors and embracing our community, one of our neighbors here in St. Paul, the Almighty Bear, he's a storyteller based out of St. Paul. He's legally blind.
How do you know him?
I've seen his stuff on Instagram.
Okay. What does he talk about?
He's trying to get the news out of Minnesota. So we both know that major news outlets are not covering what's actually happening on the ground here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Or
that's
they're
true.
misrepresenting the facts. And so what he's trying to do is get word outside of Minnesota. And
Okay.
for that, he's actually received some threats.
Okay. Are those threats coming from people
You know
out of
what?
state or?
He hasn't spoken about that publicly.
Okay. So we won't include that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the Almighty Bear, he's trying to get news outside of Minnesota.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he reached me inside of Minnesota.
Okay. So what's going on? What is he needing help with?
So right now, his furnace is constantly running, full blast.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way he can turn it off is with, I believe, the breaker. That or completely shutting off his thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's legally blind, he can't really work on it himself. So he needs he needs a professional HVAC tech to come by and fix his thermostat
Okay.
or furnace, because it could be either.
Okay.
So with that, we're banging on the drum and asking for your help to help the Almighty Bear and his family with this cost, with this burden.
Okay. Trying to raise $350. He's already raised $100.
Right.
So just $250 left to go. Any amount helps. Even $1 makes a difference. Anyway, it's for this man and his kids in St. Paul. We'll put a link to the GoFundMe in the description. And if you're able to help, obviously, if you don't have the money, please look out for yourself. If you can afford to help even a little bit, it'll make a big difference.
Do you want to get into our comments?
Okay, so go to the next slide. So this slide is from a paper called The Cognitive Neuroscience of Memory Representations. And basically, it's like a 10-page paper. But this graphic basically explains what they were trying to explain in the paper, right? Which is when you have a memory, right? Mm-hmm. There's an event or something you perceive, and your brain processes that a little bit, and it hits a cue. It hits a trace within your brain. It hits a set of neural circuitry, and that neural circuitry triggers a memory. At the same time, your brain is also calling up other information, processing other information about it, and feeding that into that memory. And then that memory so all that new information influences that memory. And that memory also influences your interpretation of that information. And by the time you've gone through that event, and that memory is now changed.
Okay.
It's not the exact same memory. So memory is not like this perfect record of our lives.
I feel like that's pretty well known.
Do you think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I recently saw a former federal prosecutor who is now a defense attorney. She was talking about it. She said most juries believe the hardtack evidence more than witness testimonies.
Really? Is that something new, or is that how
I don't know.
Has it always been like that?
She was talking about in reference to when the government makes a copy of your phone and the prosecution lays out a pattern.
Okay. So juries do weigh hard evidence stronger than eyewitness testimony.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What I was thinking about, what this made me think about, was Robert Greene, who wrote The 48 Laws of Power and The Laws of Human Nature, a lot of books. One thing he points out is that in order to become better at something, you have to do a lot of work. And most of that work is on yourself. You have to change your identity. You have to change the way you perceive yourself. And a lot of our sense of self is a set of memories and interpretations that we've given those memories. And so it's like you not only have to be doing this skill, you also have to be taking these memories that you have, these remembered skills and these remembered ideas, and this whole sense of self, and you have to reprocess it through this whole new filter that says, not only am I capable, I am a person who does this.
Okay.
And what that means is we have to think of ourselves as also a changing thing.
Okay.
And it's a change we have to like consciously direct in order to become the person we want to be, in order to have the things we want to have.
Okay. So you have to have some intent on it. Otherwise, the environment is going to change who you are, not you change who you are.
Yeah. Or whatever influence you're taking in. If you're sitting there watching the TV all day, or if you're sitting there sucking in social media all day,
Okay.
then you're taking in whatever the algorithm wants to train you to be.
Gotcha.
And then you will start to identify with those things. And then when you need to be something else.
You may not be ready to be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have any deep thoughts today?
On these? So when you were talking about how memory is imperfect, your first memories, I've told you, is when I put a staple into a outlet, maybe 3 years old.
Yeah.
I was maybe 3 years old. I put a staple into an outlet, and when it cracked and went off, I remember seeing an orange bubble vividly. But it was an orange bubble that formed, which is impossible.
Sure.
So that's how I know for sure memory ain't perfect.
Because there couldn't have been an orange bubble.
But I very vividly remember that.
So is that orange bubble from all the Dragon Ball Z you watched?
I have
Later
no
on.
idea. I have no idea. As far as I can tell, so at this point, it has to be a memory of a memory, right? Or a memory of a memory of a memory.
Yeah.
It's been at least 20 years since it happened.
Yeah, it could be millions or billions of iterations at this point.
Right. But I can remember remembering it as a bubble since I was at least 7 years old.
Okay.
And at 7, I hadn't been exposed to Dragon Ball yet.
Okay. I wonder where the giant orange bubble came from.
No, that's probably just what I had been exposed to before was bubbles. So that was probably just what my brain associated that with.
So is there a feeling associated with it?
With doing that,
Is there a feeling associated with the memory or with doing it? Yeah.
I know I was scared. I know I cried immediately after doing it, but I don't really feel that anymore.
Okay.
I can't feel that fear anymore.
Sure.
And I've also shocked myself way worse since then.
Do tell.
In the Navy, one day I was checking, I think, current one day, and
Checking current on what?
from one wire to another.
Okay.
And when you're doing power checks, you got the one hand rule. You work with one hand. But when you're not working with power checks, you just do what you need to, right? I would wear some nitrile gloves so my hands were insulated, but this day I wasn't. And so I pinched the wire to the multimeter lead, pinched the other wire to the multimeter lead, zapped myself.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it was 28 VDC.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
it wasn't that much, but it got me.
Okay. And it was right through the chest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell you for a few years, you were afraid of outlets.
Gotcha. When we left Arizona,
I imagine it was painful at the time.
maybe.
Okay.
But when we left Arizona, I don't know if you remember, but you replaced all the outlet covers.
Oh, okay.
Or we painted the walls. We might have been painting the walls.
When we left Arizona? Yeah, that's right.
One day, I think I saw an outlet that was bent out of shape. It was canted. So I went to grab it and turn it. And I just grabbed both sides of the terminal. And so I got myself.
Now you got yourself again?
Yeah. This, I would have been 11
Okay.
or 10.
Okay.
And then the thing is, it was so fast and it was such a shock, right? And I guess it wasn't enough of an experience. So before we left, I went and did it a second time, but the second time was intentional. I wanted to remember.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I wanted to. It's like, how did that feel?
How did it feel?
I remember it being a lot less painful than.
Really?
Yeah, it feels weird, right? But it's not.
Yeah, that electricity like running through you, it definitely is like an unnerving feeling, but it's not so much painful as, I don't know, grating or... Yeah.
And if you're ever doing power checks on a system, if you're grabbing the terminals you're trying to test, do not let your skin interact with it because it can skew the ratings. It can skew the test output. But I was flying fast and breaking stuff.
Okay.
I was being loose.
Dude.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to just be more careful around electricity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. You had a healthy fear for a while, and now you're just kind of, it's just electricity.
100, your wall outlets, you mess up bad enough, it can kill you. Saw a story probably about 10 years ago where a 14-year-old girl, she had taken a bath, and she was charging her phone and just using her phone. And she had connected the phone to an outlet outside the bathroom because her GFCI inside her bathroom had gone off and she didn't know how to reset it. So she connected an extension cord to her charger outside of the bathroom and dropped her phone in the tub. Wire was frayed on the extension cord and it killed her. You know, that soapy water.
So was it that she ran a cord like from a room that didn't have a GFCI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. GFCI, ground fault circuit indicator, that will save your life. So
Yeah,
if
right.
you are, that is why in America they're in bathrooms and kitchens. Because what happens is if any of the electricity is not going from the live wire to the ground wire or the return wire, if anything exits that circuit, then your ground fault circuit indicator breaker pops.
Okay.
And it's about 100 milliamps across the chest to kill you. And I believe those go off at 15 milliamps.
Okay. So an entire order of magnitude.
Yeah.
So hopefully it would.
Yeah. And in other developed nations, basically every outlet is basically a GFCI. It's not a GFCI, but it's basically...
It acts like one?
Yeah.
I would have GFCIs everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd have a GFCI on every circuit.
Yeah, why we don't do that is bewildering to me.
Yeah, because it ain't that hard to put in. I put one in.
Yeah, they go in like normal outlets. Yeah, and they'll save your life.
Right, yeah.
Maybe some things, like, maybe you can't handle as much.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, yeah, I don't know what the amperage rating is on them.
Yeah, if it was me and I was doing it again, I would have a GFCI on every circuit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because it's just kids do things, decide to test the outlet to see how it feels.
Yeah, but it was through my fingers.
Oh, yeah, it was just one finger to the other. Okay.
Yeah, so understand that if you're working with high voltage, like super high voltage, everything is a wire. And if you do something like that, so A lot of times people say electricity follows the path of least resistance. It's actually a ratio. So if running through my fingers is 99% less, if there is 99% less impedance from fingertip to fingertip, there's 1% of that impedance to go from this finger to my chest back to this finger. 1% of it will go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's actually from here to here versus here to here, it would be way less than 1% would go to my chest.
Okay, sure.
But if you're working with high enough voltage, it will happen. And also with high voltage like that, this path will get burned,
Okay.
which will increase the impedance.
Oh, okay.
So it'll grow out.
Oh, wow. So the electrical burn will basically keep running up your flesh.
Yeah, and then eventually it'll get to your heart.
Good Lord. It probably doesn't take very long either.
I don't know. Yeah, we're talking about tens of thousands of volts here, so you're probably dead already.
Yeah, it would happen very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you see a transformer outside your house acting up, just stay away from it. Call the city. 311 or 911. Or no, I don't know if it's 311, but just 911.
When I was a manager for Burger King, me and one of the employees, one of the other workers, we were out back smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like the transformer on the light pole behind the Burger King just went off. And we both, it makes a big old noise. There's a flash and we look over and we both see a squirrel just fall to the ground.
Yeah.
All the power went out. I had to close. We had no power. We couldn't
okay.
cook anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that squirrel get up?
No,
I didn't think so.
afraid not. Yeah, I think we were closed for 3 hours. The soda machine still worked
Okay.
because it's powered the compressed CO2, but nothing else in the place worked.
Gotcha.
And the owner was like, serve sodas. And I was like, we've got no way to take payment.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Restaurant culture, dude.
Don't close for any reason.
Yeah. You told me, like, how when you were a city inspector, like, places would try to resist closing down when they had sewage backing up.
Okay, so I never personally saw that, but I was told about that, about how people went into places where there was sewage on the floor, like raw sewage had backed up onto the floor. And they were like, what are you doing? You can't operate. You can't serve food when there's raw sewage on the floor.
And one time when I was working at a place, I won't name the place, but they were sending compressed air through the drains because they were backed up by grease, right? So they send compressed air through this drain and it go from the kitchen, right? And I was in the expo and it just blasts out of this drain, like a bunch of,
Holy crap.
yeah, a bunch of drainage just splatters everywhere. Yeah, thankfully, we had just opened, so there was no one there. It's more of a, it's a breakfast place. It just gets all over the walls, all over cups and everything. My supervisor at the time, she freaks out and she tells me to clean the walls and has me throw away some of the cups and has me wipe down the rest of the cups. And the cups were plastic.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Rather than trash them.
Yeah. Because she was like, each of those is $1.
Oh my God. Get me out of town, dude.
I told her that wasn't right. She was like, no, that's how we're dealing with this.
Good Lord. How old were you? Okay. Yeah, there's a reason I'd rather not work in a lot of restaurants if I didn't have to.
So the place I'm working at now has the best restaurant culture I've ever been.
Really? No such problems? Okay. That's
Yeah.
great, dude. You want to look at some comments?
Yeah. Matrix Films, transgender, allegory, directors confirm, co-director.
Yeah, so I was looking for the word for In this particular short, I was trying to figure out the right word to describe the Wachowskis, creators, the directors. 9,000 Jamez
Okay.
corrected me to say co-director.
Might be James.
9,000.
Okay. Yeah, so the way I see it is if they say it's an allegory for their transition, then I also think stories are open to interpretation. And it's clear to me that The Matrix is more than just an allegory for the Wachowskis' transitions.
Sure.
But yeah.
I can't remember this. When I was in high school, one of my English teachers played a discussion of, it was a story. I'm trying to think of what story it was. Anyway, it was a short story. I keep on thinking it was The Destructors, but I can't remember exactly which one it was. But
Actually, let me reword that. Stories, they kind of have their own meaning for each person. And if that's how they interpreted their story, then yeah. Then it is an allegory for their transitions. But it can also mean a lot more.
a lot of things to a lot of people, yeah. In this short story, that it was an interview with the author. It was like an interview with the author and with if I remember, it was an English professor, like some Ivy League English professor. And the author said, in this part I was trying to say, and the professor goes, no, that can't be right, because, and it was the very author of the story.
Yeah.
So once you put a piece of artwork out there, once we put one of these episodes out there, people have a right to interpret it. And in fact, I would rather almost hear their interpretation of what I said than try to rehash and argue what I meant, because I already said it.
What was that? I can't remember the quote, but it was like, by 40, you think you got it all figured out.
Right.
By 50, you realize it was all wrong. By 60, you try to give out advice. By 70, you realize everyone got it wrong.
And by 80, I can't remember what it was. By 80, you don't.
Yeah, I
you
don't
give
think
up
you
because
care.
you don't care.
Yeah.
At 70, you start trying to give your friends advice, and by 80, you realize nobody understood your advice. Or no, it was at 60 you start giving your friends advice. At 70, you realize your advice was completely misunderstood.
Yeah, something like that.
And at 80, you finally understand.
Yeah, and you just let it go. It's pretty much what the quote is.
Yes. So let's see, our only other comment in the last week, Daedalus MSV. So in this short, we were talking about the brutal truth versus comforting lies. And what Daedalus said is, I am on the truth side, but I have one rule. Compliments can be unsolicited, but critique must be requested. If someone is a burn victim or fat or ugly or whatever, why should I point it out and just make somebody feel bad? I think that's probably a good
rule.
That'll keep you out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Obviously, there's going to be caveats to that, where if someone's behavior is problematic to a shared goal,
Or if it's dangerous.
you're going to have to point it out. But I feel like this is what I was getting at, is like, if it's not useful to be harmful, there's no reason to be harmful.
Right.
And in general, I don't try to shame anyone when I'm trying to correct something. Unless, like, very clearly their motivations are coming from a place of intentional harm.
Okay.
But if someone's just unintentionally impeding the way of a shared goal, then it's just a mild correction.
And you can just, one thing I've found works really well is if you say, can I show you something? And then you just show them the better way. Because usually if you say, can I show you something? Like, just out of curiosity, most people will say yes.
Yes.
So let's get to the next slide. You watched with me for the first time.
Yeah, Fight Club, man.
So Fight Club opens with insomnia.
Yeah, dog, we can't talk about this, man.
That's the first rule.
And the second.
So it opens with insomnia. He can't sleep.
Did we ever learn his name?
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton. Okay.
Yeah. So Edward Norton can't sleep. And the line he says is, when you have insomnia, you're never really asleep and you're never really awake. One thing I wanted to say is this movie came out in 1999, same year as The Matrix. And right in there, you also have The Office and American Beauty. And a lot of these center around basically the deadness of office work. Like how it's almost like it's not even real work, and a lot of it is, some of it is even actively harmful.
So around that time, you would have been finalizing a lot of the transition from like keeping paper copies of everything to having digital.
Oh
right?
yeah, you still had a lot of places where still
Right, but
doing everything on
I
paper.
guess we were in the middle of that transition.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of 75% of the way through.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Excel and Word, so IBM computers, they became, like IBM put out its first desktop computers in 1981. Right?
Okay.
Apple had put one out in, I believe it was 78.
Oh,
And Apple's killer app, I believe, was the word processor. And then IBM's killer app was the spreadsheet.
okay.
Like the spreadsheet where you could make an update and it would just propagate through the whole thing, which is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because there was no undo button at the time.
Oh, really?
You're right.
Yeah, dude.
So you better save frequently.
Okay. I just know even nowadays, if you're good at Excel, you'll never have peace. If people find out you're good at Excel and there's office work to be done, you will never have peace.
That's true. It seems as Excel has become more capable, it's also become more difficult to use.
Yeah. I don't even bother. I never learned it because I saw the guys who knew it.
Okay. So I've used Excel like since I was in high school. Even now when I look at it, like I know that I know just 1%
Yes.
of what you can do with it. But that 1% makes me more proficient than probably 95%.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I guess we're saying it publicly, but don't let anyone know you're good at it.
But talking about how he can't sleep and how he goes to his office job and he basically sits on the toilet going through IKEA catalogs and
Yeah.
calling up the phone number and ordering more furniture for his apartment. And he mentions that the purpose of having all these things is actually to give himself an identity. And he's getting closer and closer to completing that build of himself through the objects he's buying. And do you remember what his job was?
I don't.
Okay.
He would look at crashes and he would decide whether paying out for wrongful deaths cheaper than issuing a recall on a
Right.
particular vehicle.
That really is a real thing.
Yeah.
Or at least it was. I don't know if it happened with motor vehicles, but there were a couple of companies where it was literally found in company memos.
Yeah, no, Takata knew that their airbags were deadly.
Okay, so it's still something that happens.
Takata would have had exploding airbags around this time.
Oh, okay.
And then afterward, they fucked up again and basically had airbags that didn't go off.
Really?
Yeah.
Is the company still around?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
But what started happening was when these kind of memos got found, they basically got found in product liability lawsuits
Yeah.
through discovery. And that's when juries started giving like billion-dollar rewards.
Gotcha.
Billion-dollar awards for wrongful death. Because it was literally
Yeah, that's willful negligence.
make this shit stop.
Yeah. I had a car with a defective Takata airbag. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I hit that deer, it was supposed to go off, but it didn't.
Oh, well,
I hit the deer,
It might be just as well that it didn't.
Yeah, I hit the deer, and about a second later, I saw a little prompt airbag malfunction.
Thanks.
And then my car shut off.
I know it malfunctioned.
I wouldn't have known that it malfunctioned if it hadn't alerted me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
Woof. Okay.
Yeah, dude, Takata, I hope they're out of business by now, but they're probably not.
We could look it up. Is it worth it?
Sure.
Okay.
I bet you they're still at it, dude.
That's all right. While you look it up, I'll refill my tea.
Do you mind grabbing me some?
Not at all.
Defunct. So I got some of the facts wrong. From 2002 to 2015, I issued a bunch of defective airbags. Some of them exploded.
Okay.
And some of them just didn't go off. Thankfully, I got a dud,
Yeah.
because if it had exploded, that would have sucked.
And they went out of business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they killed people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where were they based?
Japan.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I often wonder I guess a lot of the way companies are able to do that kind of stuff is that they have everybody doing a separate job. If you were doing like the inspection and the calculation and the decision and all that, then you'd be reluctant to do all that yourself. But I guess if it's just individual cogs doing their one job, it's a lot easier to do that kind of thing.
Compartmentalizing the information.
Okay, so if you take, obviously this is the most extreme example, but if you take the trains that were taking people to Auschwitz in Nazi Germany, Adolf Eichmann was basically the bureaucrat who was most in charge of that. And when he was hunted down by Mossad, by the Israeli government. He was hiding out in Argentina. And they basically found out who he was and one day threw a bag over his head and carted him back to Tel Aviv. And they held his trial. And at first he tried to say, oh, that's not who I am. Eventually he said the evidence was so strong. He was like, okay, yeah, that's me. And he said, but I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was make sure the trains ran on time. It wasn't my concern who was in the trains or what the cargo was. The thing is, Hannah Arendt wrote a book where she basically went there as a journalist and observed the whole trial. She wrote a book called Eichmann in Jerusalem. And what she found was she had expected she was going to go there and she was going to be listening to this psychopath, that he would rant, that he was going to be this anti-Semitic, hate-filled motherfucker.
Yeah.
And instead, he's just the most boring, oh no, I was just doing my job, like nerdy kind of guy. And it obviously wound up not being a defense. He hung. I believe he was actually the last Nazi who hung. There were other convictions after him, and they were sentenced to death, but it was never carried out. Kind of like how California does it, where they'll sentence people to death, but then
Just jail them.
yeah, just keep them on death row forever. But the big thing about that is when you have a system that just does evil, just casually does evil day after day.
Yeah. I wonder what will happen to the guys who flew that civilian painted P8.
Oh, the one that was...
Double tapped a Venezuelan fishing boat.
And it might have been a smuggling boat.
Yeah,
Right?
it might have been a smuggling boat, but we don't know that.
Yeah. And under the rules of war, under international law, you can't do that.
There isn't any justification for that. For anyone who enters that aircraft and knowingly fires on.
So then you're going to get this whole discussion back and forth. All I did was push the button. I was told to fire a second time. I didn't actually know what was going on.
But that's not going to be a defense because
okay,
rules of engagement are clear.
Okay, sure.
It is clear that a civilian painted aircraft cannot
Cannot fire, period. Ah, I see.
And the rules are clear. You are not allowed to double tap a disabled
Sure.
enemy under an international law because you're not allowed to shoot to kill. You shoot to stop.
Okay.
And if you got to kill them to stop them, but when that boat got hit with one missile, it was done. But they saw that a couple people were still alive on the boat, so they sent another missile.
And it was obvious. That's what I mean.
Yep.
There will be questions. So anyway, back to Fight Club. Do you remember how he overcomes his insomnia?
Yeah, he goes to therapy groups
For people who are dying.
and he listens to them talk about how they're dying, and then he cries with them. Maybe internally he was accepting his own dying.
Acceptance of his own death.
Yeah.
That,
He might have been processing his own death.
how important is it to accept that you will die? How important is memento mori?
Yeah, dude, it's definitely important.
Okay. And it's when he starts sleeping that he finally meets
Tyler Durden. Yeah.
And they meet on the plane. And Tyler Durden is swapping out the emergency card on the plane, the
Yeah.
plane's regular emergency card, with his super macabre emergency card.
I like it.
Yes. What I like is that somebody recreated the Fight Club emergency card. It's just like showing people screaming in pain and
Everything on fire.
uh-huh.
So if those oxygen masks, if the compartment above them is on fire, they're going to pop. They're going to
Yeah, it ain't
explode.
gonna matter. So Tyler Durden points out where
Oh, but they're usually, only the pilots usually have compressed oxygen. It's usually a chemical. It's a reaction that gives the passengers
okay, gotcha.
O2.
It's just like an oxygen salt.
Yeah, but those tubes would burn immediately. They would.
Oh yeah, for sure. If there was a fire on board, like everything that's carrying oxygen would just. In Colorado Springs, when I was little, there was like this huge fire in a mobile home park,
Okay.
and what had happened was this guy had gone home. He had emphysema. Had gone home, was kicking back on his couch, turned up his oxygen, lit a cigarette, and like the whole couch went up. And in fact, it was so bad it basically sparked a fire in both the trailers next door.
Don't mess around with purified oxygen.
But what Tyler Durden said was, the oxygen isn't actually going to help you. It calms you down.
Okay.
So their goal is actually just to get everybody nice and calm so that they accept their fate.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people make that argument.
Okay, I had never heard it before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the bracing position where you're folded in half, your spine is folded in half. Some people are like, yeah, when the crash happens, you're going to snap your neck and it's just going to be quick.
Oh, okay.
The airline is trying to kill you as fast as it can to ensure your death so you can't sue them.
Oh, okay. And make sure it's as quick and painless for you as possible.
I don't think they would necessarily care about your suffering. Just make sure that you're dead. Obviously, that is it. It's been proven debunked.
Okay.
And another thing is, what people allege is that the attendants know that, right? If the attendants think you're gonna die, they're gonna let you do whatever you want.
What I'm like is, if they figure I'm dead anyway, why are they only giving me oxygen? Give me something better.
Yeah.
Let me go out on cloud 9.
But yeah, so if you, anyway, I don't buy into that crap.
Okay, gotcha. So he gets back from the trip, and his apartment's on fire.
Yeah.
In fact, it had exploded. There had been a gas leak, and it exploded.
Okay.
And if you remember, all his stuff landed out on the ground.
Okay.
And it showed like all his stuff, just in pieces, out on the ground, out on the sidewalk below his apartment.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about was how that apartment contained his identity.
Okay.
It contained all the things he had bought in the process of trying to construct an identity. And so now that whole identity is crashed out on the ground.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to him accepting his own death preemptively.
So let me ask you then, is death of identity and corporeal death, is accepting one the same as accepting the other?
I don't know if the representation is perfect in a movie.
I would actually argue it's harder to give up your identity.
Gotcha. Than to give up your life. Okay.
And then he calls Tyler, and Tyler's, yeah, let's go hang out. And so they go have a beer, right? And then Tyler's, just ask what you want. Just say what you want. And he's like, what do you mean what I want? He's the thing you want. And he's, I don't know what you mean. And Tyler was like, you want to stay at my place, just ask. It takes all this just to get Edward Norton to say, yes, I want to stay at your place.
Okay.
Because Edward Norton is so afraid to just ask for what he wants. And Tyler is, yeah, let's go stay at my place. And it's just this rundown house out in the middle of nowhere. Do you think there's any significance in that?
That is, alter ego is
Right.
completely sentimental and not into property.
Tyler Durden is sentimental?
To his own sentiments, yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
I think I'm not talking about, I have a sentimental coin or necklace from my grandmother. I'm talking about how the life he lives, he's totally bought into it. And none of it is stuff.
Okay.
So they're just polar opposites of each other. Is Edward Norton is a consumer, right? Is a big time consumer, and Tyler Durden is anti-consumerism.
Okay. That's a good point. Tyler doesn't rely on his things to create his identity. In fact, as far as I can tell, like he has...
It's part of his identity that he rejects.
But then he has the clothes, like he has the red jacket, and he has the red sunglasses, and things like that.
Okay.
But that's kind of all he has.
Yeah, is his look.
Yeah. He just has his fashion, and that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, what did you think of the way Edward Norton lost his job?
Took a while for him to get there.
Where he basically gets it to look like his boss beat him up.
I know that most places these days, if you've worked somewhere for years and you get fired in a corporate job like that, they'll just pay you severance. They don't.
If you had a job like his where you were keeping those kind of secrets, yeah, they'd definitely keep you on the payroll for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'd be signing NDAs out the butt.
Uh-huh. What a lot of this made me think of was how in the 90s you didn't have like universal surveillance like you do now.
Okay.
Like people didn't have phones. You didn't carry a phone with you. There
Yeah.
weren't cameras everywhere.
I don't even know that nowadays, necessarily, if there wasn't a camera in that room, if it was just phones and neither of them were recording, I don't know that they'd give up the information on that.
Like that their phone provider or whatever would ever give up that data.
I don't know that they would. It seems like small potatoes, but maybe they would give it up at a request. But I don't know that the law enforcement agency would even think to ask. Of course they would think to ask. They know that. So I don't know.
Like they could have their whole house out there and everything else, and there was no record of them. There would have been no record. That's one major difference between now and prior to basically 2010, was that most of your life had no record.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And now it's like most of your life has some kind of record.
Yeah.
I mean, they even track when you sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah, dude, we are pretty far deep into the surveillance state.
We're so far in that we don't even think about it.
Yeah. It's frogs boiling, right? It was a little bit more. They've cranked the heat a little bit more.
Right.
We just haven't realized that we're boiling.
I think a lot of people realize we're boiling, but they see no way out of it.
There's, of course, ways out of it.
Okay, so in China, we've talked about this. What a lot of families do is they have a basket in the bathroom full of towels, and everybody takes their phone and throws it under the towels.
And I think the purpose of that is if they turn off their phone, they lose.
Then they lose social credit score. And like the kind of job you get in the house you live in and all that is dependent on your social credit score.
At what point do you think Americans will reach their boiling, like start reacting?
Okay, so let me give you my take on this.
Okay.
With the rise of social media, we had a phenomenon called cancel culture.
Okay.
Where basically somebody says something crazy on the internet and they lose their job over it.
Okay.
Right? And they lose their reputation over it. They get doxxed over it. And the first time like that I really saw it was like 2012 when this girl, she was a PR person for an international nonprofit, and she made what she actually meant to be like a sarcastic joke where she would be pointing out her own privilege as a white person. And she basically said, I'm going to Africa where there's all this HIV. Hope I don't get it. Just kidding. I can't because I'm white. And she meant it to be a joke, but that really doesn't convey well over Twitter. And by the time her plane landed, it had blown up. And she wound up losing her job and everything. And you could say a PR professional should have had better judgment than that. But on the other hand, I'm like, nobody had really ever, as far as I know, that was about the first time, one of the first times that had ever happened. And she said it basically wrecked her life for years. It hurt her dating life. She was like, people would Google me. It hurt my friendships, my ability to find employment. It basically wrecked her life for most of a decade. And there had been things that had happened before that, like where comedians made bad jokes. Bill Maher made some pretty off-color comments about 9/11. And so he lost his show on ABC, which was called Politically Incorrect. So it was founded on people saying crazy things. Ann Coulter got her start on Politically Incorrect. Basically, people would say like the most outrageous things, but that was too over the line. And so for several years, he just had to go back to doing like stand-up comedy. But when you talk about somebody makes a comment online and they lose their job over it, Americans don't like that. Americans don't like the idea that somebody could film me doing a lurid dance at an event, in an entirely appropriate location for it, like at a dance contest at a bar or whatever, which has happened where there have been incidents where a teacher took part in a pole dance competition and wound up losing her job over it because somebody videotaped it and went online. Americans just don't like the idea that they could lose their job over a dumb comment or a thing they did. And I would actually argue that the Trump administration's approval rating, Trump's approval ratings, actually were fairly steady until the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Where, now, as far as Charlie Kirk goes, I didn't even know who the guy was. Like, the first I heard of him was when he passed. Which, by the way, should never have happened. And I have a rule where I'm just not going to deride someone who just passed away. Because, first of all, there's nothing I could say that could make their day worse. The other thing is that person has someone who's mourning them.
Yeah.
And that person deserves to be able to mourn them.
I also think about it as that person can't defend or justify any of the things they said. Obviously,
that's true. They can't explain it. Yeah.
Right, Charlie Kirk is an extreme case because
He said a lot.
he made his money saying divisive things.
Okay, sure. By doing a little bit of rage baiting.
He said some
did a
really
lot.
harmful shit.
What I would argue is that what we had never seen, like with cancel culture before. Yeah, people would dogpile someone on the internet, or they'd try to organize, oh, let's all call their employer and complain, or put bad reviews on the Home Depot or restaurant or whatever they work at. But this last year in 2025, what we saw was the Vice President of the United States and the Speaker of the House saying, go get people fired if they criticize Charlie Kirk. That's cancel culture to a whole new level, because it's government officials taking part. It's government officials egging it on. And I would argue when they started pushing cancel culture, like that was when they lost. That was when their approval ratings started to, that's when they started actually losing people who had previously supported them.
Gotcha.
Because nobody wants to be on the business end of that. Everybody knows that if you make that go around, it's eventually going to come around. Because no matter who you are, there's going to be somebody who has a problem with you. So, anyway, where was I going with this?
You're just saying Americans, we are being surveilled constantly.
And so, my thought is that the point at which this surveillance starts to break is when it starts getting used as social credit score. As, are you going to be allowed to fly? What kind of job are you going to be allowed to have? Where are you going to be allowed to live?
So they've already started with that. Also, I think the name Palantir has been in the news too much.
Everybody knows who Palantir is, yeah.
That they've just helped perpetrate so much harm.
But yeah, what they do, a lot of what they do is they just aggregate information about people and then resell it to the government.
So that's true. What's also true is they have teamed up with Amazon to use Amazon's Ring doorbell cameras to perpetrate this ICE shit.
Okay.
I don't know if Flock is a part of Palantir. I don't know if Flock is a separate company.
Okay.
But I know Flock is integrated into that as well.
So Palantir buys data from Flock.
And from Amazon.
So you're basically getting...
And Flock is the AI-enabled surveillance company that is on almost every, what are they called?
The Flock cameras are all over the place.
All the traffic cameras.
So, yeah, even just like 10 years ago, people would say, if you don't want to be tracked, turn off your phone and put it in a foil bag. But now, like, there's cameras everywhere taking pictures of your vehicle, taking pictures of your license plate, and all that can be used to aggregate your movements.
And it doesn't need the license plate.
So just the shape of your car.
So any particular damage or anything like that, yeah.
So we just have this universal surveillance state. Yeah, I think...
And the thing is, I don't even know that all that information has been helpful.
I don't see how it could be.
Even to these, like the FBI and everything, it has to be targets that they already have.
Yeah.
It's just too much information.
I just don't see, like, how our government paying tens of billions of dollars. Literally, they are paying tens of billions of dollars to acquire this data. And I don't see how it really...
certainly doesn't benefit the American people.
Yeah, and I don't see how it benefits the government with, like, investigations or anything else. It just seems...
The primary focus of at least initially with Flock, was basically to sell advertisement data.
I imagine they're still doing that.
Yeah, of course.
So most people don't have a problem with if they're just going to try to sell me dumb advertising.
But the issue is that the government is collecting the data, as well as the fact that these private companies are tracking you at this level.
Not just that. The thing is, it's not just the U.S. government who's doing it, because these data aggregators will sell it to any and everybody. And that's going to include conduits that then go to foreign governments. They go to foreign intelligence services. So it feels to me like it's a tool waiting to be misused. To me, it's if I built a big old stack of dry wood in my basement and said, oh, it's not dangerous. It's not on fire.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I think Palantir is it's too well of a known entity. I don't know that particular company survives.
Okay. But the thing is, does their business model go away?
No.
Okay.
No, I think...
So maybe that company, maybe it just gets broken up or changes its name. But I think the practices...
Until we get elected officials who represent their constituents.
Because most people don't want all this.
There's actually zero correlation between what the bottom 90% of Americans want and what laws get signed into.
Yeah, that's been the case for 20 years. Basically, there was a study 20 years ago that found that. And going back to Bill Maher, he said, so can we just say oligarchy now? Can we just call it oligarchy? Am I allowed to say that now? Yeah.
So with that said, fuck any representative that takes PAC money.
Right. Yeah.
That takes corporate PAC money.
Yeah. The thing is, they don't need it to win. Anyway, going to the next. This is an image of the first fight between Edward and Tyler.
Okay.
And it's actually like they're like seriously hitting each other.
Yeah.
But then they have a beer with each other afterward. Like it was all friendly. And if you remember, people...
Are we in agreement on the same image? No, this is the image we're looking for. Okay.
So what were your thoughts?
During the fight?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So obviously when you first see it, you don't know that they're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get...
The purpose of the fight?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a fun thing to do. Getting the rage out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, physical manifestation of all their...
One thing that keeps getting talked about throughout that movie is how the culture feels emasculating. Like how you're not ever taught how to be a man. You're taught how to be compliant. And so a lot of the idea of Fight Club is all these guys just get together and they're just free to engage in this primal ritual.
It's a freedom they've given themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you go to the next slide, you remember the 8 rules of Fight Club. Rule number 1. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Yes.
But obviously nobody follows that rule. And then if it's your first night, you have to fight. And there winds up being all these people walking around with like marks on their face.
Yeah.
And Meatloaf's character, I can't remember his name. I think it was Bob. His name was Robert Paulson. Meatloaf's character, he runs into Edward and Edward's, oh, do you still go to the support group? And Meatloaf's like, no, I don't.
I found something new.
And he goes, and Edward's, what? And he's, the first rule is, I can't talk about it. And Edward's, oh, wait, when are you going? And it winds up that there's these different nights when they're going. And Edward doesn't know what's going on because he's thinking he's going to sleep, but he's actually living as Tyler. And people were saying, oh, the guy who started it, he only sleeps an hour. That was Meatloaf. They say the guy who started it, he only sleeps an hour a night and everything else. And yeah, it was true. But the thing is, neither of them knew that it was actually Edward Norton who had started it. So all these guys are just saying, I would rather do this. I'd rather hang out with a bunch of other guys in a basement and watch street fights.
Okay.
Than do all these other things I tried to do to regulate myself after work and watch TV or go to support groups or walk around town or buy things.
Okay.
Going and watching each other fight and getting in fights yourself is actually more freeing and better for them. What do you think of that?
We both know how damaging that is to the brain.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so UFC fighters, I haven't been able to verify this, but I read that it's turning out that UFC fighters have a 27-year shorter life expectancy.
Wow.
Yes. Average man lives to 77, average UFC fighter lives to 50.
Wow.
I have to verify it, but Would it be all that surprising? No.
But I get the messaging. I think I get the messaging.
It seems like the moment people had an option to leave behind the consumerism.
They did.
Yeah.
And I agree with that sentiment.
Okay. So people are just, you think people are just hungry for a way to have identity and something to do, something worthwhile to do that doesn't involve like just sitting there watching
Right.
TV or consuming things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think consumerism, a lot of it is an addiction.
Okay.
That's definitely part of it. But so like, you don't have to create to be a consumer. If you're really into fashion, you make your own fashion.
Sure.
But when you're really just into consumerism, you just buy the fashion.
So instead of creating your identity, you try to buy an identity.
Yeah. So obviously there's caveats and like limits to that, right? Because you and I, we can't just be showing our fashion every day, but that's not necessarily consumerism, just having things. Consumerism is constantly just getting the next thing, right? It took people very long into the current life cycle of Apple phones. It wasn't until iPhone 8 that they realized that they were just destroying the last iPhone's usability.
Oh, you
Because-
mean planned obsolescence?
Yeah, because they were just buying the next, so many people were just buying the next
Oh,
one.
that they were never seeing their old one actually crap out. Okay.
But it eventually happened to enough people who were like, hey, why is this phone just suddenly slowing down? When actually there hasn't been that much of an advancement in the software that we're using. Because it's not like the text messaging app today versus 10 years ago
It's
needs,
the same technology.
it needs to consume so much more processing power and battery. But why would the phone not be able to handle that? Why would it
Right.
be incapable of doing it? They'll say, yeah, we slowed it down so the battery is usable. So you go in and you try to replace the battery, and you find out they've entirely encapsulated the battery in adhesive. And these batteries are flimsy as hell.
Okay.
So if you try to remove this battery, you'll fold these lithium ion electrodes.
It'd never work again.
Not just never work again, it'll catch fire.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, it'll burn up your lithium battery.
Huh.
And it wasn't until they got sued for that they made the adhesive more removable. And you haven't seen an issue in just batteries coming loose. You haven't seen an issue in their usability or their...
So are you saying it was a strategy to make the phone irreparable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the system relies on you using something, throwing it away, and buying the next thing. When really, your phone doesn't need all that much to do its job. Make phone calls, make text messages. Nowadays, it's nice to be able to search something up on the fly. A camera is nice. But all these little conveniences, they've used it to just track your entire life. Because the GPS is a double-edged sword. Gives you access to Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, whatever. They just use your location the entire time the phone is on to track you.
And they use that to sell tons of marketing data on you and everything else. Yeah.
And even if you turn off your location, it still phones home to Google, to Apple, where you are. In fact, it uses even more accurate location data based on the devices around you that are also, even if you turn off these services, still putting those signals out.
I see.
Each of these devices knows exactly which room of the house we are in.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is nuts. Why do they need that?
Yeah, they don't need that.
They don't need that. Yeah.
Nobody needs that. I should have just paid for the phone, and now the phone's mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to talk about, for example, like a ticket app, an app you use to buy tickets.
Why does it need my location? Why does it need access to the
I'm
camera?
already paying for the tickets and they're already taking a cut. So Why is it so essential? Why is it so important to get that extra bite? So what I'm actually doing is I'm moving all those kind of apps to my tablet and permanently deleting them from my phone, because I am just like, I'm to the point where what I'm going to do is wean myself down to where all I use my phone for is calling, messaging, and searching things on the fly, like you were talking about.
So I've given out a lot of dread on that. There is a fairly cheap solution, cheaper than an iPhone, cheaper than a Samsung phone, that does not send that information back to Google, back to Apple, and it's the Brax phone. It's the only phone that I know of that actually, at the hardware level, prevents that kind of thing.
At the hardware level, protects your privacy.
Yes.
Okay. You would still have to manage your apps.
Yes. So they use a third-party app store called F-Droid,
Okay.
which is open source. And it tells you when you go to an app in F-Droid, it'll tell you whether it's proprietary technology or open source technology.
Okay, sure.
And since it's F-Droid, it doesn't include Google. But any app you download from the Google Play Store on your Brax phone is going to send data home.
Okay, sure. Okay.
It prevents it at the hardware level, but the software is up to you.
Which is kind of crazy that it would be nice if those apps, if they had some way that you could turn that off.
Brax phone enables that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you get to control which apps, when these apps get to send information.
Okay. Like when they collect, or when they're able to collect it, when they're able to send?
Just when they're able to send it, I don't know if you can prevent it from collecting.
Okay. I see.
A lot of people are trying to get away from their phones, using them all the time. And the Brax phone is a smartphone. A lot of people who are in this privacy vein want just the utility of a phone, and they want a phone that actually minimizes how much they use their phone.
Right.
The company Brax does not make a phone that does both. The Brax phone is just about privacy. It's also $300. The chip in it is not all that powerful. It has a massive battery, 5,000 milliamp hour, which is great for a phone.
So with that low of processing power, there's a lot of apps that it just wouldn't run.
No, you'd be able to run them.
It would run most utility apps, but if you play games,
Yeah, if you're trying to game on it,
it's going to run very poorly. Which probably isn't a bad thing anyway. You go home and game on your laptop or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, you ready to go to the next?
Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts on these two characters.
I forgot her name. Of course I remember Bob, but
Yeah, I can't remember her name either. But what are your thoughts on her? Because she's pretty pivotal to the story.
she's both a victim and a perpetrator in the story.
You first meet her, she's sitting at the back of the tuberculosis meeting, smoking a cigarette.
Which honestly, that's believable, that cigarettes are so addictive that I bet a tuberculosis sufferer would. I'm sure it happens.
Tuberculosis, it's reasonably curable now.
It's extremely curable now. Like even the antibiotic resistant versions of tuberculosis.
Are beatable. Yeah, you have to be on medication for a very long time
And
because it grows so slowly. The way most of those antibiotics work is they kill the bacteria as it divides.
So it's actually, right now in the world, it is the most killing curable disease.
Huh.
Yes.
Huh. Okay. Is it just lack of resources?
Yes.
Okay. I see.
Yes. And it's not that expensive to actually cure it for this medicine. It's just the prices we choose.
I see. Okay.
Right.
So with her, on the one hand, she's a side note. On the other hand, she's actually what causes Edward to grow through his problems.
Yeah, because him and Tyler Durden would have been separate people if not for her.
So Tyler Durden is this separate identity that looks how he wants to look and works how he wants, you know what I'm saying, talks how he wants to talk, fucks how he wants to fuck, all of that. And so he has like this separate identity he's created. And she is the only one who is like giving him clues that you two are actually the same people. Like through the movie, that's the only clue you're getting. If you remember, you asked me, are they the same person when he was talking to her?
Yeah, and then you tried to misdirect me.
I actually was trying to refuse to answer.
Yeah, but then you gave I remember the answer being actually to the negative that,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't trying to be to the negative.
yes.
I was just trying to be very ambivalent. Because I'll tell you, at that point in the movie, I hadn't figured it out. I never figured it out until they said it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude, I like her as a character. I like how chaotic she is. Go ahead.
What do you think of Bob as a character?
He really is just a compassionate dude for half of the movie. And he's actually compassionate throughout
The whole thing?
Yeah.
He's actually just the only character in there who's just a straight up good guy.
Yeah, and you know what? He kind of gets the best ending, man. He died how he lived.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Where he just got shot in the head and he was dead.
Yeah, and that was it.
And he was doing a prank.
Yeah.
Corporate vandalism or whatever. I don't know.
Well, that
it
was
was a little beyond a prank.
Yeah, dude, that was yeah.
Yeah.
But wasn't he running away, or were they shooting at the cops?
No, they were running away. And
Yeah,
the cops were shooting at him.
It's still a trope that rings true today, dude.
Fair.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I really liked Bob.
Yeah, me too. So the next slide is just the ending, where they bring down all these banks, and they want to eliminate all the debt record. And they say they have to destroy all these skyscrapers, and that'll do it. Of course, it wouldn't work now. Like,
Yeah.
There's so many copies. But what he basically was saying is, if you take the debt record to zero, then everybody's even again. What do you think of that idea?
It actually doesn't get you to even, but it gets people out of the hole, out of the cycle. It
Right.
gives them a choice. They can re-enter the cycle, or they can leave the cycle.
Okay.
Because currently they're all living double lives, presumably because of this debt, right? And their consumerism. And so it's really them trying to escape the matrix.
So that's the idea, is that you break the shackles of consumerism by breaking the debt from consumerism.
Yeah.
Interesting idea. I never thought of it.
Yeah, because they're working. They're all working. And then they go home, they consume, go back to work, and they spend more than they make, because that's how it's designed, is you'll spend more than you make, because that's how credit is.
You just keep spending more than you make until you finally can't work anymore.
I could spend 10 grand this month, but only pay 500 next month.
And then eventually bankruptcy, you wind up in bankruptcy court. Your debt breaks you.
Bankruptcy is a good reset.
It's true, but it's a shame it gets to that point.
Obviously, you got to suffer a lot to get to bankruptcy, but I don't see bankruptcy as the shameful thing.
Yeah.
I see the getting there as getting trapped in that cycle.
Yeah. No, a lot of people are judgmental about others over being in debt, or judgmental about themselves for being in debt. But I'm like, we live in a system that is built to put you in debt and keep you in debt,
And actually, it's really hard to stay out of it.
especially once you're there.
Yeah. But I kind of wonder when he shoots himself, right?
Yeah. Whereas the gun is in your hand. Wait, that means the gun is in my hand.
Yeah, when he shoots himself, I wonder if what they're like trying to do is maybe he doesn't. So I think the obvious thing is he misses his brain, right?
Yeah, it flies out the back of his jaw, but it goes through Tyler's brain. Because you remember, Tyler winds up with a hole in the back of his head, and he falls over dead, and Edward just has a hole in the side of his jaw.
Interesting. So what I was wondering is, did he nick the part of his brain that separated the two?
So then it all unified. They became the same person again.
Because Tyler has zero compassion.
Right.
But
Yeah, Tyler is like purely psychopathic, narcissistic. He's like a cult leader.
he is a cult leader.
Right.
And so with that, I I think them unifying that was cool.
So this separate identity he created, now he incorporates it into his actual son.
Yeah. Because if you remember afterward, he's okay with it. He's okay with what he did.
Right.
When actually Edward Norton wasn't okay with it at all.
Okay, fair.
Edward Norton was not on board with blowing up all these buildings.
Yeah, he was trying to stop it. But then the two of them just watch it all collapse.
And he's actually good with it. So I think he ends up, at the end, more like Tyler than like Edward. But the essential components of Edward made it into Tyler.
Okay. Gotcha. Or vice versa. The essential components of Tyler.
No.
Oh, okay.
I think he's more Tyler at the end than Edward. But what is it? 2-3 minutes that you get to see it? Yeah, it could be the other way, but I think he's more so Tyler than he is Edward, because that's what the whole story is about, is him becoming his true self, his free self.
Okay. Which is what we're doing right now.
So I think they're the essential parts of Edward make it. The compassion, the reality checking, right? But the parts that made Tyler powerful, right, which was most of his personality, remain.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think the narcissism will actually go away, but I think there will be a realistic check on it.
Okay, understand.
But
Edward's compassion, his ability to empathize. Not just empathize, but feel compassion. Tyler was able to empathize with people.
yeah,
He just used that empathy to manipulate them instead of... So,
do you think that final scene where Edward puts the gun to his head, do you think that was actually all part of Tyler's plan? Do you think that was Tyler's plan, was to push Edward and push Edward and push Edward until...
that's what he does the whole movie.
But was the plan for that to end the way it ended? Or do you think Tyler was actually trying to preserve himself?
That is... what that makes me think of.
Tyler, throughout the entire movie, is just trying to get Edward onto his side of things.
So what that makes me think of is the Darth Bane trilogy. And what Darth Bane figured out was how to extend his life by absorbing, how do I put this? By taking over someone else's body, right? And he takes on an apprentice, right? You got to have a master and an apprentice. Darth Bane created the rule of two, right? Where you could only have two Sith. You'd have a master to wield power and an apprentice to crave it, right? And the way the apprentice becomes the master is by defeating the master, by killing the master, right? And he takes on his apprentice, who's she's a girl when he takes her on, but over time, she grows into a woman and she's incredibly powerful. And in their final battle, she's destroying Darth Bane, but he grabs onto her and basically incinerates his own body, which is what he has to do in order to take over hers. And the new apprentice who watched the whole thing, knowing that's what he had to do to take her over, after that whole fight's over, he says, "So who am I talking to?" And she's basically, Darth Bane is dead. But as she walks away, she has his limp. So the implication is they fused. So this idea you're having, this isn't the only place I've seen this. And I'm wondering why I never thought of that. Like, I thought that was just the end of Tyler. But you're saying they fused.
Yeah. I think it's obvious in the commentary afterward that they fused. Because Edward Norton, to that point, has never been confident with that woman.
And right then, he just takes control.
Right. He's confident with her, holds her hand, which is what he wanted.
That's true. He wanted her the whole time, and he just never had what it took to take her. Interesting.
In fact, he works confidently in the opposite direction the entire movie.
like talking about how he doesn't like her. So his obsession with disliking her was actually his way of liking her.
It was clear jealousy between him and Tyler. And yeah,
He was jealous of Tyler in every way.
but what Tyler did was he was like, hey, man, take it if you want it, man.
Go seize the life you want.
Her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But Tyler also was like, hey, yeah, you don't want her. She's not a good person. She's not a sustainable thing. She's really only good for fucking.
But the thing is, she's like actually she's an incredibly rational character. You find out, like when you first meet her, where she's just like stealing people's clothes out of the laundromat and selling them. She seems like this, like she's just a liability. But as the film goes on, you find that she's actually she's actually she's the most sensible person in the entire film. You disagree?
Yeah, she wanted Edward to come see her. So she tried to overdose on Xanax, which I don't know that is possible.
Okay.
I don't believe overdosing on Xanax alone is possible. I know if you mix it with alcohol, it's really easy to overdose.
Okay.
But if I'm not mistaken, it takes you eating about a third of your body weight in Xanax to kill you.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Which you would have intestinal problems long before.
Yeah. I'm sure would have made her super loopy.
Yeah. She'd be asleep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, it's funny how the interaction with alcohol just makes
It kind of changes your whole perspective on the movie, though, to say Tyler and Edward are the same person.
It was clear that Tyler was threatened by her.
Yeah, because he was like, don't talk to her about it.
Yeah, he was threatened by Edward's love for her.
Ah, I see. Because Tyler isn't really capable of love.
And he wanted Edward to reach Tyler's point.
Okay. Okay. So it was either we become me or we stay you. And at the end, you reach this point where they're actually kind of able to fuse a little bit.
And I think part of it is Tyler can't feel that love for her, but Edward could feel that love for her.
So is it similar to the idea in The Matrix, where the way the Matrix is beaten is through romantic love? And what actually catalyzes the end between Edward and Tyler is Edward's romantic love.
Yeah, he found something worth saving. Yeah, summarize, he concludes this tension within himself to save her, right? Because it was his intent to kill himself.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
She'll come up here and see me dead, but she'll be alive.
So his willingness to sacrifice himself for her.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't until he was willing to die that he could actually resolve the tension between him and Tyler, because they're each like half a person.
Yeah.
All right.
Dude, you gave me some insights I never even thought about. Somebody's going to get in the comments and correct us, though.
Yes, actually, the director came out and... Damn it.
I saw an interview, the writer of the original novel, Chuck Palahniuk.
Okay.
And the interviewer asked him, he wrote this 25 years ago. It's a dark vision of the world. How do you feel about the world now? I mean, when you're young, you think the world's always going to get better and everything, but I've been around so long that I know it doesn't get better. Things just keep going. Like, we never escape any of the problems. They just keep going and going. So no, I'm not excited to stay in this world forever. I was like, man.
Is he American?
Yes.
We've been headed this way for a while.
Okay, so let me ask you, when you talk about that kind of culture of fighting over everything, right? It's been like that all my life. But and this idea doesn't come from me. I just can't remember who I originally heard saying it. But what they said was, baby boomers have always fought and argued with each other, big time. Civil rights and the Vietnam War and everything else. It was baby boomers solved problems by yelling at each other. So how much of that is just that we're still living in baby boomer culture?
It could be that, because their parents were
The greatest and silent generation.
they were the ones that unionized.
It's true.
They were the one that actually paved out a lot of these kind of socialist programs that we have, or these socialized aspects of our lives. And then the baby boomers benefited from that.
In a lot of ways. And
Built
just look
on
at
that.
like college tuition.
And they were like, okay, it's good enough. Now I don't want anyone else.
I'm not willing to pay it forward. The thing is, our whole society is based on paying it forward.
And so they voted out all of these to do policies. So now we're coming to a point. It's been almost 100 years since those socialized policies were put in place.
Like 90 years since you had the New
And
Deal.
they've basically all been done away with. And so we're going to do what the silent generation did. What the silent and the greatest did. Like, history repeats itself, or it doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
The cost of living for ordinary people is just insane. I don't know how you can afford to have kids.
Right.
It's like you got to be a millionaire. Like childcare is, I know people who are paying $2-3 grand a month for childcare for just a couple of kids.
Right.
That's $30,000 a year. Like, how is a regular person supposed to afford $30,000 a year for childcare when the average household in Minnesota doesn't even make $70,000 a year?
What really opened up my eyes to it was when we were talking about how I was like, it's not even good for business. And you were like, it's good right now, in this moment. And what these CEOs are thinking are, you'll be gone. The '08 crash, that was built on the thinking, you'll be gone, I'll be gone.
Yeah, that's true.
So much of our lives is ruled by guys who are saying, you'll be gone, I'll be gone. These oligarchs, right, that buy our representatives. They are people saying, you'll be gone, I'll be gone. And what's going to happen is we're going to beat that. But the question is whether or not we're going to beat it in a way that prevents it from ever coming back. Or are we going to beat it like the silent and the greatest generation, where, yeah, they did what they could, but then they got sold by their kids. Their efforts got sold by their kids. Are we going to build a system that can endure some bad decisions?
Endure for the long term. The nature of elected representation is that the next generation can change it all.
But how is it that countries like France stand in solidarity with their workers?
Okay, so workers stand in solidarity with each other. There's a saying that in the US, the people are afraid of the government. In France, the government is afraid of the people.
So how do we get to that point? That's my question.
I've seen videos of like where the farmers were like going down to the Capitol with truckloads of manure and just dumping it. And when they sent the police to stop them, the police joined the march.
Because it was their right to protest in that way in France.
The police just said, you know what, we ain't being treated well neither. And they just said, you know what? So I'm just kind of, yeah, if we had that kind of solidarity, like most of these problems would evaporate.
And a problem with that is, like you were talking about, like a third of people are working so damn much, 12 to 14 hours a day, right? That they're not even aware of a lot of the rights that are just being straight up stripped from them because
They're just trying to
they're
get by.
working and sleeping.
I can tell you, like, when I was a parent, I don't know if I count anymore, but when you're raising kids, all you do is work. You work. Now it's got to be even worse.
Yeah.
I thought $600 a month for childcare was brutal for me. But now it's only been 20 years and it's 4 or 5 times that.
Like even if 20 years, so 50% more, so $900. And I'm sure there are parents who are listening to this and are like, $900 would be so good.
That would save them.
And like, you get all this propaganda from baby boomers. And I don't know that it's necessarily coming from the baby boomers. Maybe they say it because they're fed this. I think they're fed a bunch of propaganda and then they go and spew it back out. That Gen Z and millennials are just not hard workers. And we are the hardest working.
Dude,
So the
Gen Z and millennials put in their time, man.
for baby boomers, 2-income household, the average amount of hours worked was between 30 and 40 a week. 2-income household. For Gen Z, it is between 74 and 140.
Yeah. Okay, so when I talk to Gen Zers and a lot of millennials, they have their regular job, they have a side gig, or they have 3 part-time jobs. It's like people are putting in their motherfucking hours. When I hear people say, oh, young people don't want to work, I'm like, what are you talking about? People are putting in immense numbers of hours and not really being able to get ahead for it. And I think that's when you talk about what is stagflation, that is the definition of stagflation, where, yeah, there's enough jobs out there that you can patch it all together, but year on year, you're not getting ahead. You're not able to save for retirement. You're not able to save for a house. Like it just, and we've been in that for probably most of the last 10 years, if I was being honest about it. We've probably been in that, some degree of that ever since 2007, like ever since the Great Recession. I don't think we've ever actually recovered from that.
How do we beat it, dude? That's the question.
I've said what I think the solution is. You have to say that if extremely wealthy people are just borrowing against their stock and never paying any taxes because all they're doing is borrowing, then you got to tax that. You got to treat that like income. And if you do that, you could actually bring the tax rate down on everybody and you could have better benefits.
Gotcha. I think for Americans, your ability to live is tied in way too hard to your ability to work. I think there is sanctity in life,
So
to life. And I think your inability to work should not dictate whether or not you get to live.
So in the US, a lot of the thought process is if you make it too easy for people to not work, they won't work. During COVID, right, you had a lot of lockdowns, so a lot of people couldn't work. And you had this huge expenditure, this enormous amount of, basically every safety net program we had got beefed up and people got sent. If you were on unemployment, you got an extra $1,500 a month. Like, we lifted half of the country's children that were in poverty out of poverty just for that year and a half that those benefits were around. If you look at unemployment among people with disabilities, it actually increased during all those lockdowns because you were finding ways for people to work from home. More people who were disabled were working during COVID than prior to. So when you make it easier for people to work, you actually get more people working, even when you have an increase in the safety net. So that's why I'm all the time, that's part of the reason, all the time I'm like talking about how you need to increase access. You need to protect the rights of the disabled. You need to do things to keep people healthy in the long term so they don't become disabled, or if they are disabled, it doesn't worsen. Because if you can increase people's access to be able to work, you will get more people working. And there's a lot of people who aren't disabled because they're disabled. They're disabled because of how society is shaped.
So the way I've thought about it is, like, these billionaires and oligarchs, right? Like, their lives would be better if the bottom end was lifted. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or it wouldn't.
They'd have more customers.
They'd have more customers and everything like that, but like materially, their lives wouldn't change. You know what I mean?
The thing is, they would still have the same access within society, but they'd have a better society to access.
Okay. It was just Dave. But yeah, so their dollar value net worth might decrease or might remain the same. instead of steadily increasing. But the thing is, their lives materially would not change because they cannot consume things at the rate that they're hoarding them.
Oh,
They can't even.
yeah. I'm like, Elon Musk is going to become a trillionaire regardless of how he's taxed.
And what
You
I'm
know?
saying is the long-term thinking here is bad. You know what I mean? And it makes me wonder what the thing they're actually protecting is. Is it just so that they can fucking rape kids? Is that why we are living so far under their boots? Is it so that they have better access to fucking kids? Because this surveillance state, it doesn't benefit you or me.
And it's not protecting kids.
That all this shit is all of it just so that they have better access to children?
I didn't think about that. That is hardcore, though.
Is that why they're ruining our lives? Is so that they can fucking keep raping kids?
I think we're going to have to pause there because we got to go to the gun show.
Okay.
We'll probably have to finish this tomorrow.
All right. So it's been a long time since we shot the first half of this episode.
Shot the first half.
What, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, and then we had to reshoot. We shot the second half, but our volume was all messed up. Our sound came out all messed up. So now we're reshooting. That was my fault. I actually, it didn't sound right through the headset. And I thought, you know what? It'll be okay. And it was not okay.
It's like,
I needed to reset everything. Since then, let's see, we've gotten Operation Epstein Fury.
Okay.
So we were talking earlier about how somewhere around 15 to 20% of the world's energy passes through the Strait of Hormuz.
yeah.
And I was explaining that the supply and demand curves for oil are very steep.
Yeah.
They're very inflexible. So even just a slight drop in the supply of oil results in a big jump in price.
Okay.
Because just because the price goes up a little bit, that doesn't change how much fuel you need to like get things from A to B and get yourself from A to B. The price has to go up quite a bit to change people's behavior. When there's less supply, you have to change some people's behavior. So we've seen gas prices go up, about 35, 40 cents a gallon?
No.
No, more than that?
It's been $1 for us.
In the Midwest?
Yeah.
Really? I saw
70 cents at least.
70
But
cents? Okay.
I believe gas a couple weeks ago was about $2.60 and now it's $3.40.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah, just a few weeks ago, we were at $2.49 a gallon in the Midwest. I saw a picture someone posted of gas prices where he was in California,
Yeah.
in Southern California, and it was $5.45 a gallon.
Yeah, there are parts of San Diego where how many people actually purchase it? It's $9.95
Oh, are you serious?
per gallon. Yep.
Holy moly. The thing is, probably Trump's strongest campaign message, both in 16 and in 24, was we got money for wars, but we don't have money for schools. He explicitly said that. He said, we got money for wars, we don't got money to rebuild schools. It's so stupid. Our leaders are so stupid. He said that repeatedly. And he ain't wrong. He wasn't wrong when he said that. Bernie Sanders basically was saying the same thing. People were saying that during the 90s and the 80s. It was a similar message during Vietnam. We got money for wars. We don't got money for healthcare. We got money for wars. We don't got money for fixing roads and bridges. And when people see their gas prices go up, majority of Americans saw no reason for this. Why?
And the justification has been preemptive attack, but preemptive attack is actually pretty specific language. A preemptive attack means that you have excellent intelligence that your enemy is guaranteed to make an attack against you. But they called it a preemptive attack, but really what it was is Israel said they were going to fucking bomb Iran and the U.S. could join them or not.
Yeah, I saw a joke that said Netanyahu is the worst president the U.S. has ever had.
Anyway,
It really wouldn't surprise me at all if it's just Trump following Netanyahu's lead.
yeah,
I really hope that people in that part of the world who are subject to this violence understand that the bulk of us in the U.S. are not behind this.
yeah,
We are not in favor of this at all. There's a distinction between the American people and the American government, particularly now.
yeah. But anyway, obviously we've seen this administration twist words and terms. This is not a preemptive attack.
Right. Marco Rubio tried to say, the Secretary of State tried to say that there was an imminent threat. If there was an imminent threat, they would have presented the evidence. They would have shown the proof.
Yeah, and the CIA publicly stated that. They had no evidence that Iran was going to make any kind of move against Israel or
Right.
the U.S.
But that said, politically, the administration may be in for a penny and in for a pound. Because, okay, if this continues, if the Straits of Hormuz continue to be closed, that 70-cent price increase is going to turn into $2 or $3 a gallon price increase.
It may double.
Yeah.
It may well more than
Yeah.
double. Yeah.
We could see $200 a barrel oil in 6 weeks. Even if all of it stopped now, there's been so much physical damage and so much. Okay, so with the way oil wells and pipelines work is you have to keep them running. They have to keep going and going because a lot of it just basically, so if you've ever siphoned an aquarium, right?
Okay.
So you put the tube in the aquarium, you fill it up with water, and then you lift the tube so that the end that's coming out is lower than the end that stays in the aquarium, right? And so when the water pulls through, you're
Going from a higher energy point to a lower energy.
yeah, you're net going downhill.
Yeah.
And you can keep that going as long as you don't stop the flow.
Okay.
Once you stop the flow, if there's any air in that tube, or if you accidentally lift the end that you're draining from higher than the end you're taking it out of, the tube empties.
Yeah.
And then you have to start over again, right? You have a similar effect with oil wells. You are pulling again, you have this higher pressure at the bottom, right? And as long as you keep the oil flowing out, then you have all this, you basically have all the physics working in your favor, right? So once you get a well going, you have to keep it going. You have to make sure it keeps flowing, right? You have to keep on running that from the pipe to the tank. And then the holding tank has to empty into a vessel. And then you have to have another vessel. You have to just keep on going. As soon as your tank fills, you have to stop the flow. And when you stop the flow, you're shutting down the pipeline. And to get it all going again, you may have to repressurize the well. In all these Gulf states,
Yeah.
they've had to stop the flow
Okay.
of oil and natural gas.
Yeah.
So even if you said, okay, ceasefire on all sides, right? We have to get this energy thing going. We'll work out a deal. We'll figure it out. We'll do what we should have done and just put Trump and Netanyahu and the president of Iran, and they can all go in the ring, and we'll give them each gladiator weapons and they can fight it out. Better for them, better for us, better for the millions watching around the world. They can go fight it out, whatever their issues are. Their issues are not my issues. And we're going to restart all this energy. That energy, those flows are going to take months to get back to 100%. You might be able to get 20% in a week. But then that next 20% is going to be harder, and the next 20% is going to take longer. So to get all the way back to 100%, 6 months.
Okay.
We have our next elections here in November.
So it'll be on everyone's mind. Yeah. even people in party, right, are talking about having ice at the polls and everything.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of governors are saying if ICE is going to try to be at the polls, we're going to have National Guard right next to them.
Yeah, I can't imagine the fiasco that November's going to be, dude. Honestly, I hope we make it through the fucking week. That's at the point.
Okay, so there's a strategy called flood the zone.
Okay.
It's where you just say, okay, the public doesn't like anything we're going to do. So we're going to do it all at once.
Okay.
We're going to flood the zone. That way they can't focus on any one thing, right? They can't stop any one thing. So we're going to get 90% of what we want just by flooding the zone. And it'll confuse them. They won't be able to get a focused message. But that only works if you have some popularity to begin with. The president's approval right now is running at 38%.
It's still 38%.
Considering that a month ago it was 41. My thing is he's bleeding approval just at a rate of 1 or 2% per month. His disapproval rating has been going up.
Over a third of Americans who will approve of fucking anything.
It's true. Okay, George W. Bush during 2008, when the economy was losing 500,000 jobs a month, the financial system was collapsed. I got to tell you, every month during 2008, you would hear about another bank collapsing. Bear Stearns was collapsing.
You and I were just talking about maybe moving our retirements if we're like, what are we going to fucking do with them? You know what I mean?
And to be honest, just putting it in international stock funds may just be the best thing to do. Because
you know what?
Like last year, the U.S. stock markets, on average, if you take S&P and Dow and NASDAQ, on average, they returned 10% in 2025. But if we'd had them in the European stock markets, the return would have been more like 16%. That's a 60% better return.
Yeah.
So foreign markets are doing better than the U.S. right now. I will say this. There's no way I'd sign up for a war unless Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Barron all sign up to go.
Fuck it, man. Put the old man out there himself, man.
I'm just like, if the people who want war ain't signed up for it, why the fuck would anybody else? If you really believe in it, we're just seeing a lot of wastage of government money right now.
It's also wrecking our futures.
It is. So if you take Kristi Noem,
that bird-legged hoe,
she got fired.
She did not get fired. She got promoted.
Yeah, that's true. She fucked upward. The saying, if you fuck up, you move up. That's kind of what she did.
Yeah, the assistant GM at the Domino's I work at, that's what he was like, yeah, dude, I was such a terrible fucking delivery driver, but such a good worker. They made me a manager.
You can't cut it as a delivery driver.
Yeah, you just forget shit all the time.
You know what? You're not a good delivery driver. We're just going to have to move you into management.
Yeah. Yeah, but the difference there is he had actual competence. He just couldn't do that particular job.
Sure. Yeah, he just wasn't suited for that.
Yeah.
The two things that basically got her fired, what it looks like, is she spent $220 million on ads featuring herself.
To her friends.
And and it all went through Corey Lewandowski, her boyfriend, the guy she was cheating on her husband with. He also got fired. It looks like he got moved up.
Yeah, but he got the money, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. She also spent several million on luxury jets. Hundreds of millions on luxury jets. That's that $75 billion for ICE. That they spent $28 billion on building a database.
Yeah.
And by the way, their database is so bad that their $28 billion database that they basically shoveled all this money out to all these contractors and Palantir and everybody else to build for them. And it still isn't good enough. It still isn't good enough. What they're actually doing is they're buying marketing data, all the different apps and your smart TV and Netflix and all this marketing data that gets
Spotify.
sold. Yeah, and all this marketing data that gets sold, like on the spot market, ICE is buying it up. CPB is buying it up so they can run location on everyone. Their database is so bad that they can't follow you themselves. No, they have to buy up all the app data from people's phones.
It's the database that they have to build themselves.
But
Just a little tip of information hygiene. They can, in a van, track what you're doing.
like capture your signal.
And that's actually one of it. So, like, a lot of people on the internet, they don't understand. A lot of creators in the past have promoted VPNs and like they didn't actually know what a fucking VPN did, what it was actually useful for. Because a lot of them make it sound like, oh yeah, you sign up with the VPN, you do whatever the fuck you want. No one will ever fucking figure out what you did. That's not true. But when they're trying to catch your information in transit, that is a case where a VPN will make it impossible for them.
If they try to capture it with one of their mobile cell towers or whatever. The thing is, all this money they waste on stupid stuff like that, on grift, is money they're not using to carry out violence against people. It's important that we talk about the grift and get the word out, because that demoralizes the people who otherwise would support them. But privately, I would rather see them grifting
Oh yeah.
than see them attacking people. The other thing is the grift is money, and it's money that can be followed. And our media and Congress and everything are very good at following money and publishing that kind of grift. So grift is kind of something that low key everybody hates, but only low key.
Yeah, because when it comes by your way, and I'm using the royal your, you know what I mean? Because almost all of our politicians they'll take it. If the money truck stops at their door.
Jack Abramoff, he was a lobbyist back in the 2000s, in the 90s and 2000s. And he went full on into straight up bribery and wound up going to prison. And several lawmakers, like who were associated with him, either lost their jobs. I think a couple of them went to prison too. And what he said is, here's how I would know if I could get someone. I would say to them on our second, third meeting, I'd say to them, what are you planning to do after you leave? What are you going to do after this? And depending on how they answered, he would know if he could basically bribe them into supporting him.
What were the answers that he was looking for?
I don't remember exactly, but people who basically said that they plan to go make as much money as they can. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she's one of those. She was making $100,000 a month as a lobbyist before she became Trump's Attorney General. Before that, she was Attorney General of Florida while all the Epstein stuff was going on in the 2010s. And she basically kept on sweeping it under the rug in Florida. So she's basically proven her worth as someone who can sweep stuff under the rug.
She's always been their guy.
Yeah. I don't think, how do I put this? I don't think it's so much that she's in favor of it as that she sees it as a way to make a buck.
What pays her. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a disgrace, man. I don't know what to say. All these other countries, so many other countries have either investigated people, locked people up, people have lost public positions.
Yeah. And
over this Epstein stuff. In private industry in the US, in different corporations, Goldman Sachs, CBS, they've kicked people out who were involved with Jeff Epstein. Larry Summers got fired by Harvard University for his connections with Epstein, even though there's not really any evidence that he was involved in the child trafficking or child abuse. There was enough evidence that he was just hanging around and maybe knew about it. That Harvard University was like, you're out of here, dude. But our government can't arrest a single fucking person.
as soon as they kick anybody out, they got to come after POTUS.
Oh, you mean whoever it is will spill the beans on him. Dude, he's mentioned 38,000 times.
Yeah, he's mentioned more than
and that's
else.
just in the stuff we've seen. We haven't even gotten a third of what's going to come out.
What I'm saying is, if they go after anybody, they have to go after POTUS. You go for the very worst one.
I have never seen anything like
I
this.
think it's entirely valid to call them the Trumpstein files.
The Trumpstein file. Yeah, it is. He's on every page.
Yeah.
I was reading basically this person's article, and how do I put it? It was their opinion. It was their conjecture, but just based on what they've read
Okay.
in those Epstein files, where they basically said they didn't think Jeff Epstein was actually the brains behind the operation. That it seemed to them there were like 4 or 5 people who were actually like running this ring. And they were just, Epstein was providing the location. That it was actually 4 or 5 other people. But the problem is, those 4 or 5 other people, they could conjecture who it was, who those 4 or 5 people were. But their names had all been redacted. So they just couldn't quite tie them exactly.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but no single hard tack.
Yeah. And the names of the people have been redacted out of the files that were put out publicly, which is against the law. The law specifically says the only names to be redacted are victims.
And they're the only names not redacted.
And they're the only names not redacted. Not consistently redacted. Yeah. Or consistently unredacted is victims. This whole thing's a disgrace, dude. So we're going to have high inflation. We have a job market that lost 92,000 jobs last month, created a total of 180,000 in the last year. We have a war in Iran that nobody wants, spiking gas prices, high inflation. Flood the zone is supposed to like give you some political benefit in the end because you got a bunch of your agenda through and it's going to work and things are going to be better and people are going to thank you for it. But none of this is going to work. It's just going to make things worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't know that it fits the definition of flood the zone, man.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that, like you said, there isn't the basis of support for it.
Sure.
They had no reason to believe that flood the zone would work in this case, or should work in this case. And also this Trumpstein stuff has been long-standing.
Like if you're a domestic oil producer in the U.S., it could be good for you, but you have to roll the dice. You have to say, okay, we'll ramp up production with the thought that we are going to make a lot of money before Middle East production restarts.
I'd feel pretty safe about that bet right now.
Okay. You're going to have 6 good months. 6 good months might be enough to justify the cost of ramping up. It's also a matter of, can you get the people? Do you have enough people working for you to do it?
And this administration has destroyed education for us.
Things are already bad.
Yeah, you need mechanical, electrical, chemical. You need almost every one of them.
Yeah, need a lot of tradespeople. Yeah, it's not. Ramping up oil production isn't the fastest thing on earth. There's things you can do immediately, but then to really get a long-term, to really keep on ramping up production over months and years, you have to start spending a lot of money. Yeah, I would say some people are going to make a bunch of money in the here and now, but long-term, I don't think it's no more than a blip at best.
Alrighty. Do you want to get into this?
Yeah. So this thing I wanted to talk about like a month ago. I did talk about a month ago. Have you ever heard of?
In fact, I have.
Okay. So the JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope, it looks in the infrared.
Okay.
And it runs at negative 440 degrees F. So it can pick up just that little bit of a temperature fluctuation.
What is that in Celsius?
I think it's negative 440 C.
Nope.
No? Oh, it can't be negative. Yeah, yeah.
0K is negative 273.1.
So yeah.
Sorry, dude.
Negative 440 F. So I believe in Rankine, that's around 120
Okay.
Divide by 9, multiply by 5, you get what? So you basically would have about 130 Rankine. Divide that by 5, 16, multiply by 9, or I'm sorry, divide
Divide
that
by
by
9.
9.
So 15 times 5.
Yeah, so 75.
Okay.
So about negative 200, see? But at that temperature, it can pick up these super minor fluctuations in the IR band. And it's the equivalent energy that's produced by like a hummingbird. If the JWST was sitting on the moon, it should be able to pick up the temperature fluctuation from a hummingbird landing on planet Earth. Yeah, you're talking about very minor amounts of light that it's able to pick up. And light that's in the IR band on the far edge of the universe was in the ultraviolet and X-ray and gamma ray bands when it was released, because it's just that redshifted when you're looking out that far. So when you talk about blue monsters and red dots, blue monsters, you're talking about light that at the time was extremely high EM.
Okay.
But looking back to the edge of the universe, when the universe was not even 1 billion years old, there are these mysterious objects that it's been really hard to tie together like what they are. Because according to all of our understanding of cosmology up to now, these large stars and these galaxies that are being found should not exist. So this first image, this first slide that I have here, is looking at some red dots. And they're at Z equals 3.5, a redshift of 3.5.
Okay.
So you're looking all the way back to when the universe was 1 to 1.2 billion years old. And these stars, if you look at that bottom left frame, you can see that you have a jump in the bands at basically at helium, right? You have helium that gets hot enough that it partially ionizes.
Okay.
Right? Helium has 2 electrons in its outer orbital. Well, the outer orbital is the 1s orbital.
Yeah.
So you have a spike where you have helium-1 and then a spike where you have the helium-2 line. So you have the helium where both electrons are still in the orbital, and then the helium where 1 electron has been burned out of the orbital. And then you can get another absorption of helium, which is where it has no electrons left. But then it just kind of starts absorbing all light.
Oh, okay.
Right? It just, you get this, you basically have this gas that doesn't release any energy.
Okay.
So it just absorbs, and it basically causes the star to get darker and darker. Okay. And then as it's getting darker, though, it's getting hotter. So that gas is expanding. And eventually that gas expands enough that it's able to cool a little bit, and some of that light's able to start breaking through, at which point electrons settle back onto it. And then you get this really bright burn of helium spectrum release.
Okay.
So these little red dots exist in the early universe, and they couldn't have been like regular stars along the Hertzsprung-Russell band like we would expect to see now. They have to be huge. So if you go to the next slide, back in 2023, when these were first detected, there was a lot of conjecture that, oh, these could be black hole stars, which it's a conjecture.
And isn't black hole star a misnomer?
So the idea is at the center you have a black hole, right?
Yeah.
And around the black hole you would have some gas. You would have gas and dust accreting into it. But in the early universe, there wouldn't have been dust. Like all you really had was hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium, because all those other elements hadn't formed. All those other elements form in stars or as a result of supernovas. So you have this little black hole with an accretion disk, and at the accretion disk, it's releasing all this heat because that gas is swirling around super fast. So you basically have friction that heats it up like nobody's business to millions of degrees. And it releases all this light. And then you have a cloud of gas out around it, like a sphere of gas that hasn't yet been pulled in. And that gas heats up to what the temperature of a star would be. And if you look on the lower right, you can see the comparison of the sizes of different stars we know of compared with what a black hole star's size would be. So you can see this black hole star, like its radius extends out like 25 AU. That would be like out to Saturn's orbit.
It's massive.
Even bigger, Betelgeuse and Canis Majoris and everything, man. You can see on this next slide, there's a CANUCS LRD. LRD stands for little red dot. Z 8.6. So the nomenclature is based on the redshift. Nomenclature includes the redshift. That Z of 8.6 is clear out to where the universe is like 800 million years old, maybe. It's super young universe to show how early these are forming. On the next slide, you have blue monsters at redshift greater than 10. Where has all their dust gone? So these blue monsters are galaxy sized. They're the size of like dwarf galaxies. And for a long time, it was thought there was just no way in the early universe that you could have these dwarf galaxies forming. So we have these supermassive stars, and we have these little dwarf galaxies that are forming. Now, the question was all their dust gone? The answer was, there really isn't any dust. So you can see in those violin plots how much dust, the mass ratio of dust, which is elements heavier than helium, to the amount of stellar, the mass of the stars. And you can see, like with the red dots, they're expecting this mass ratio of -2, right? Or I believe actually that's a logarithmic scale. So
Yeah.
they're expecting 1%, right? And instead you're getting 1 part in 100,000 or 1 part in 1 million of dust to hydrogen and helium. So there's just so much less than what anybody predicted can. So the question then becomes, what that shows is that you have these small dwarf galaxies forming where it's too early for them. According to our understanding of cosmology and physics, they shouldn't have been forming this early.
Okay.
The next slide shows these super old spiral-like galaxies. And with a spiral galaxy like the Milky Way,
Yeah.
what you should have is a supermassive black hole forms in the middle. And that supermassive black hole builds an accretion disk. And you get a couple of galactic bars that are pulling gas in from the rest of the galaxy toward the center. So you get this superactive center that starts spitting out all this gamma radiation and everything. That gamma radiation, that electromagnetic radiation, causes ferromagnetic particles, right, throughout the galaxy to align.
Okay.
Okay. So when those ferromagnetic particles align, you get a magnetic field. That magnetic field and that EM radiation, they keep on reinforcing each other. So you get these stronger and stronger magnetic fields. And those magnetic fields are what actually cause those spirals to form, cause the arms to form. So the arms form around the magnetic field. And according to astrophysics as it was understood up to now, you shouldn't have been able to, first of all, get that supermassive black hole that early. And then it should have taken a couple billion more years for the spiral arms to form. But these are all forming much earlier than you should see them happening. Like this is showing them all the way out at redshifts up to 3. On the next slide, basically this is a rendering of the Milky Way. And you can see within the arms how you have the bulk of the material is within the arms. And what happens too is all the gamma radiation and everything gets shunted along these arms because that's where the magnetic fields are. So it gets bent along them, just like electricity getting bent through a wire. It's like a conductor. And you got to have just enough radiation going through to push along gas movement. And in doing that, it helps with star formation. You would also, like when you talk about life on Earth, you need to have some incoming radiation to help spark abiogenesis.
Yeah, you have to mutate DNA.
Not just that, you have to have enough radiation incoming to take non-living chemistry and turn it into living chemistry, to turn it from non-biological chemistry to being biological chemistry.
Okay.
At some point, you have to make that leap from non-living to living, from non-life to life. Anyway, that has to happen within the arms of a spiral galaxy.
So it's possible that a radioactive waste could create its own life?
Yeah, it's very thinkable. Yeah. You have to have some, but not too much. And it's better not to have a completely steady source. It has to be occluded from time to time. But there's no reason to think it couldn't happen. Life is pretty wily.
Yeah. We recently covered how molds consume that shit.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was one of the coolest things I ever learned. Dude. So you can see the sun, how it's out in one of these spiral arms, but it's not actually super close to the center.
Like you said, it has to have just enough, but not too much.
So there is this paper I read had a proposal for what could be causing.
You want me to next slide?
All right. Yeah, go to the next. But first we got to talk about a little bit about the standard model. So on the left-hand side, you've got the up quark, down quark electron and electron neutrino. And that's basically what exists right now in the universe as we know it. And it's because you don't need huge amounts of energy to keep stabilizing it.
Okay.
Those heavier particles, the charm and strange and top and bottom quarks, they need more energy.
They're significantly heavier.
Even like the muons and taus and the muon and tau neutrinos, even they are not stable.
Each row is a jump in 2 or 3 orders of magnitude.
And then you have the bosons, the Z and W bosons. They are basically, they transmit the weak force. So the strong force is transmitted by gluons, and it holds quarks together. And the weak force breaks them apart. And with the gluons are like photons for quarks. And the real description of their behavior was called quantum chromodynamics, which I kind of thought was, that sounds kind of dumb to me. But when you think of it, that it's similar to an exchange of photons. Photons are to electrons what gluons are to quarks. It's like transmitting light. And that exchange of gluons changes the color of the quarks. And that constant shifting of color stabilizes those quarks so that they can form protons and neutrons.
Are gluons at all involved with quantum entanglement?
Not that I've heard of.
Okay.
Quantum entanglement is about spin. So the Pauli exclusion principle basically says that two particles cannot basically have all the same quantum properties at the same time. With electrons, with hydrogen and helium, you have that s orbital. that s orbital only holds 2 electrons. One spins up and the other spins down. And then the next layer out, you have another s orbital, and then you have 3p orbitals. Those 3p orbitals each hold 2 electrons. One points up, one points down. What that quantum entanglement says is, if you can spin off 2 electrons, right, out of a single reaction, that when you catch one, if you identify its spin, the other will always have the opposite spin. You can say, if you take like a piece of matter in antimatter, an electron and a positron, and you smash them together, it annihilates and you get 2 gamma rays, right? 2 photons that then shoot out of that reaction. And those 2 photons should have opposite spins.
Okay.
So if you know the spin of one, you can know the spin of the other.
And if you change the spin of one, it'll change the spin of the other.
So you can force one, when you read it, to have spin up or spin down, right? And then the other will automatically have the opposite spin.
Okay.
So that's why it's been proposed as a form of instantaneous communication. Because if you could just get one to go one way and one to go the other, right? And then if you could somehow capture this one so it just gets caught in an orbit or something, like going around a magnet, like going around in circles, then you could make it spin up or spin down. So you could send it as a Boolean operator, and then the other one would show it. Seems like a lot of work to me to just send one Boolean operator. But yeah, that's basically what entanglement, that's the idea of what entanglement is. I believe it was the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics basically went to people who showed that the nature of reality as we understand it is actually based in entanglement. It's based in these atomic kind of interactions. And there is no solid baseline reality as we understand it that everything is building off of. It's more of a network of entangled events.
Won't pretend to even begin to understand.
I can hardly explain it. The way they described it is the universe is non-local, right? So if you were to take, okay, so let's say you're looking at a galaxy, right? Way on the edge of the universe.
Okay.
The photons that came out of that were emitted 12 billion years ago, right? So you're looking at this ancient quasar.
Okay.
And it is being lensed by another galaxy in between you.
Okay.
So you're looking at this lensed galaxy. So you're looking at photons that came out, split apart, and then came toward you. And because they are coming out as part of the same reaction, some of these photons are going to be entangled.
Okay.
And so if you were to catch one of these entangled photons and force it to spin up, the other one would come to you and you'd detect it and it would be spin down. So that would mean that those photons knew 11 billion years ago when they were emitted that you were going to pick them up and you were going to force one to be one way so the other could then be the other way.
Because it's impossible. That was decision.
What does that say about your free will? What does that say about...
Yeah, I'm sure there's more evidence for it, but wouldn't it just be that at that time one of them was up and one of them was down?
So what we'll do is we'll dig into our next episode. We'll dig into those experiments.
What I'm saying is it probably didn't know that I was going to observe it.
Okay.
And that at that time it was already up or down.
Sure.
Or
You can also say if it's going at the speed of light, then time doesn't actually exist for it. The moment when it gets emitted from that galaxy and the moment when you pick it up 11 billion years later, no time has passed for that photon because it was going the speed of light. The instant when it gets released and the instant when it gets observed are the same instant.
yeah, that makes more sense.
All right. Shall we go to the next? The next thing I want to get into is supersymmetry. It was an idea that was thought of in the mid 70s. And it kind of had its heyday in the late 70s and up to the mid 80s or so. But the idea is that for every particle in the standard model, you have a supersymmetric particle, a much heavier particle that corresponds to it. So you have the first generation up quarks, down quarks, electrons, neutrinos. So then you would have up squarks and down squarks and selectrons and sneutrinos and on up the line. And the supersymmetric particles are so much heavier than the standard model particles that they're even less stable. So that up squark would be even less stable than a top quark. You also can see that you have the same bosons and photons and gluons and everything. Yeah. An interesting thing about the mathematics, and this is, I don't know how much of this was somewhat forced or if it was just a thing that showed up in the math and made it, basically allowed this to have life, is that if you took those lightest supersymmetric particles, which can be, you have all these different options for what the lightest one could be, right? But that the lightest supersymmetric particle could be stable.
Wouldn't it be photinos?
You know what? I'd have to look it up. But it seems to me photinos, they would be zero mass.
That's what I'm saying.
But they wouldn't be able to interact with electrons. So they'd just be zero mass waves. So I guess you have a good point. So here's a good question. Photinos, if they're just energy and they don't interact with anything, could they be just interacting with empty space and causing it to expand? So could your photinos actually be your dark energy? Okay.
That was our big conversation from last time.
Right.
We ran through this as if you just had some selectrons and some...
If you could get a stable selectron?
Right, you'd be able to theoretically view this dark matter web throughout the universe.
Or at least pick up the dark energy. You'd be able to pick up the photinos. So yes, what they kind of conjectured, what their math said, is that those winos and xenos should be light enough to be stable. And mathematically, they come out, they could be, you could have enough of them to make up the dark matter balance of our universe. The problem is you have to...
Even though the Z boson and the W boson are significantly bigger than the ups and downs.
Oh, are they really?
They are 100,000.
Oh, they're huge. Okay, that would explain why they're not stable.
Yeah.
Anyway, the idea here is that during the early universe, you could have had enough energy, it could have been hot enough to stabilize some of these particles, right?
Okay.
So if you could say, okay, maybe this S neutrino or whatever is light enough for it to be stable. So the dark matter is sneutrinos. Anyway, if you were to say that the early universe is hot enough to stabilize some of these, then you could have them aggregating into clouds of sparticles that would not be reactive with anything else in our universe except through gravity. And so in essence, they would be dark matter. And if you could get enough of them together, then you would have winos and xenos that could be self-annihilating. They just annihilate with each other. And so you'd have this dark matter star with this nucleus made out of dark matter. It looks like it's mostly empty. All right, let's keep going.
I got to take a leak.
Go ahead.
So that was a good break point. We were just getting into black hole stars. Not black hole, dark matter stars.
So the idea is, if you can get enough of these sparticles, which would be non-reactive with normal matter, with baryonic matter as we have it, then if they could aggregate together, they'd be able to form basically a dark matter star. And the winos and xenos can basically become self-annihilating. So they annihilate, the Winos are annihilating with each other, the Xenos are annihilating with each other, and they're spitting out all this EM radiation. They're spitting out all this light. And if they're heavy enough, you're going to have this cloud of gas around it, cloud of hydrogen and helium, which would then absorb those gamma rays that are coming out of there,
Okay.
and then re-release it as something a little less energetic.
Okay. So the question I would have is, what is the gamma equivalent of a photino? You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like nothing else would absorb that, but we're somehow absorbing and interacting with gravitinos. You know what I mean?
So there's a reason supersymmetry never really caught on. It was a fun thing people did for about 10, 15 years because the mathematics was so interesting. With both supersymmetry and string theory, it was some cool stuff that came out of the 70s and 80s. But string theory really hung in there through the 90s and into the early 2000s. But the problem is when we develop these large colliders, right? The large colliders have never been able to produce any of these particles, never been able to produce a string. And they've said it's because you need a collider that's basically as big as the orbit of the moon to get enough speed and energy. We're never going to build that. So the way these theories have been described is not even wrong. You can't disprove them. You can't prove anything about them. You can't disprove anything. So they're not really science because they're not disprovable. I would say they're scientific conjecture, but the critics have a good point that
If you can experiment on it.
and there's no way to experiment on it. It'll be 200 years before we could build such a collider. And would future generations even think it was worth it? So yeah, we can, like you and I, it's fun to sit here and conjecture and say Tinos could be the dark energy.
Right.
And sneutrinos or whatever could be the dark matter, but we ain't never going to be able to prove it. But nonetheless, we'll talk about dark matter stars because basically what these researchers are saying is it could be dark matter stars that are a good explanation for the red dots and the blue monsters and the early formation of spiral galaxies. Because if you could get these supersymmetric particles that the universe is too cold to keep stable now, and they could form these dark matter stars in the early universe, and then you would have particles within there that could self-annihilate and spit out photons. And if you get a cloud of gas around them, which we know there was plenty of hydrogen and helium, then you would have these little red dots, which are not little. And you could have these blue monster galaxies that are super lit up, but have no heavy elements in them. If you look at this next paper, this next slide I have, supermassive dark stars and their remnants as a possible solution to 3 recent cosmic dawn puzzles. You can see they're looking at that same kind of spectrum as you saw at the beginning, where you've got these dips, these radiation spikes, these EM spikes at the helium lines. And if you go to the next slide, they look at what would be the supermassive black hole growth. Now, supermassive black hole growth is limited, right? At the same time it's pulling in material, it's heating that material up. One, it expands, so it pushes itself out. The second thing is it starts emitting all kinds of radiation, and that radiation pushes things out further, right? You would also get jets at the top, at the north and south poles, right? And those jets spit out even more material. So you can only grow a supermassive black hole so quickly, right? You have this limit. And what they looked at was if you take these 3 blue monsters, these 3 if you take these 3 black holes, right? These supermassive black holes from the early universe.
Okay.
And you look at how big they are, right? And you can create two lines that say, let's say we start with a dark matter star that's 10 to the fourth solar masses. How would it grow? Like at the redshift it's at, what size would we expect it to be? And then you could say, what if it started out at 10 to the fifth? What if it started out at 100,000 solar masses? Where could we create these bands of how big a supermassive black hole could have gotten in the time that was permitted since the beginning of the universe? And these three red dots, J0313, J1342, and J1007, they fall within those bands. And if you take the blue monster galaxy UHZ1, it also falls within those bands. So you could, if you look at the next slide, what they're proposing is you start with a dark matter star, and then it becomes basically a black hole. It becomes like a black hole star. Or I'm sorry, you start with a dark matter star, and then it becomes a supermassive dark matter star.
Okay.
And from there, it becomes a supermassive black hole. At the same time, you have a cloud of gas that's forming its own stellar material.
Okay.
And it gets caught up in the orbit, into orbit around this supermassive black hole. And so you can get this early formation of spiral galaxies, basically, that are seeded by these dark matter stars that become supermassive dark matter stars.
So are black holes not, would they not have each, they're both baryonic matter and dark matter versions?
Yeah, so black holes, we know they can form from baryonic matter. They would have to be pulling in dark matter as well.
Okay.
So could you have a black hole that formed purely from dark matter?
No, is black hole matter different matter from baryonic ore?
Right.
Is it unique from dark matter and baryonic matter?
So you can't say what a black hole with the singularity would be made of. It's its own. And when you talk about a black hole, all we can see is the event horizon. And from the event horizon, all you can see is mass, spin, charge. It basically is like a giant particle. You follow me?
What? We don't know. I'll give you $1 to go get a scoop, dude.
Isn't it like a teaspoon of black hole would be?
I think it goes a tablespoon of a neutron star is 200,000 tons.
Okay. And what a tablespoon of black hole would be heavier than the Earth?
Is 200,000 tons heavier than the Earth?
No, not even close. But that singularity is considered to be infinitely dense, conjectured to be infinitely dense.
Like a black hole this with the mass of the Earth would be the size of a marble.
That's how big the event horizon would be. We can look that up, but yeah, the thing is you can't see past the event horizon.
So we don't actually know how big it is.
Yeah.
We know something has to expand because the event horizon expands as it gets bigger.
As it gets heavier, the event horizon expands. But the expansion, it's the volume of the black hole doesn't expand proportionately to the mass. It's the
Does
surface.
it expand at all?
The surface area of the event horizon expands proportionately to the mass.
Okay.
So what that tells me is all the information, the radiation within a black hole is contained within the event horizon. So to me, if you take a black hole, you're going to say, okay, so you have a singular, everything has to be getting drawn into the singularity, the infinitely tiny point in the middle. But at the same time, because that's the way the gravity would work, that's the way the physics would work. But at the same time, it all has to be getting caught on the event horizon. So it's almost like that singularity in the middle is a projection of what's going on the event horizon. So to me, I call it's the paradox. I call it the black hole paradox. Like everything has to be in the middle, but also everything has to be on the outer edge. Which is it? It's both. And that's like wave particle duality. Like when you think about elementary particles, it has to be a wave, but it also has to be a particle. So anyway, once you're talking about a black hole, at least from the outside, it doesn't matter what falls into it. It all just becomes one particle with mass charge spin. So anyway, that's their conjecture, is that you can explain all three of these mysteries from the early universe with dark matter stars that then become supermassive dark matter stars and then eventually become supermassive black holes. So how you would prove any of that, I don't know. Do you want to read a poem? Okay.
I'll have you read it this one.
Okay. To Bless the Space Between Us by John O'Donohue. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at once with your life's desire. That is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
Do hard things, Sid. Do scary things.
Take those risks, roll the dice. Fight for what you believe in, and don't shut up.
Oh, yeah.
Any other thoughts?
It may all burn down anyway, so you may as well.
That's right. Hey, if you're going to be hated for being yourself.
You're going to be dead anyway, man.
That's right. Ain't none of us making it out of it alive.
Yeah.
And on that note, I believe the ideal life is a non-stop process of learning and growing. Thanks for learning and growing with us. Stay on your game, and we'll see you next time on Everybuddies podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Well done, dude.
That was awesome.
Hopefully the audio is good this time.
Hopefully.
I'm going to cry if it's not.
I'm sorry I keep correcting you on that.
About what?
It's Celsius and okay.
You know what? It's called showing fallibility.
It did not seem that way.
No.